Hi guys, my name is Taryn and I am a hobbyist budgie breeder. I have been breeding budgies for probably about 20 years now. And so I am also, my day job is that I'm an avian vet as well. And so what I want to do today is take you through how I set up my budgie breeding cages. And then maybe later on down the road, I might take up how to set up a budgie breeding shed, and how to select birds, etc., etc. So the main thing when setting up a budgie breeding cage is you've got to consider what kind of cage you want to use. So there's a couple of different kinds. And so behind me, you'll see two different kinds here. So here you've got an enclosed cage, and then an open wire cage. And there's pros and cons to both of those. So I certainly prefer the cages with enclosed bottoms, solid bottoms. And the reason why I prefer a solid bottom as opposed to a wire bottom, which I've got paper over on this one, the reason why I prefer that is when the babies fledge, it's better for them to learn how to eat seed and forage, and they won't get their little feet caught through, so it's good for them to help to learn how to walk around as well. It's also safer for them. So the reason why I say it's safer is there's a risk if you get rats or mice somehow into your shed, which can happen. They can pull babies through the wire. They can pull it through and they can kill the babies that way. I've had a couple of rats do that. So if you've got the lower portion here, just wire, they will pull them through. So they're pretty nasty when they're hungry. Everyone's got to eat, but I prefer they don't eat my birds. So in the event of a rodent break-in, you've got at least the babies protected there. Cons to having a solid wood floor or solid flooring is that the birds will be sitting in their muck. So you do need to clean it much more frequently than you do a wire floor. A wire floor, the feces and droppings, they will all fall through the wire. Some can get caught on the wire, but it's more likely to drop through and keep it clean. But it's not very nice for them to walk on, and they can't do their natural foraging activity, which budgies are grass parakeets naturally, so they do like to forage on the ground. Okay, so going on to walling as well. So solid walls are great in that they're easier to clean and they do offer a bit more protection. However, they do reduce airflow in the cage, and they are also harder to get perches to attach to. So with wire cages, you do have the ability to have more perch options and positionings definitely available, so that's really nice. But whereas with the solid wood flooring, solid wood walls or solid walls, you actually have to make specific perch spots, and in the back of these ones I've got little holes drilled for perches. A con to having a solid wall is that the birds are not able to see each other. So the really good benefit about the wire cages is birds can see other birds through them, and this helps stimulates the birds to breed. Bird budgies are colony breeders, and so they do prefer to breed in larger numbers. So I always recommend, if you do have solid ones, then you can have your cages facing each other, which I used to have in this breeding shed. However, I've decided to just move it around a little bit, just it's giving me a bit more room in this particular breeding shed. So that is one of the cons of having the solid wall, is that the budgies cannot see each other. They can at least hear each other, which is good, and that also helps to stimulate breeding. So often, if you are breeding birds, I always recommend at least breeding more than one or two pairs at a time, because the number of other birds breed, like the hearing the other birds breeding and doing those things, stimulates those birds to breed because they feel safe because they can hear the other birds. So minimum at least two pairs of breeding at once and you'll have much more success. So I do have a setup that is the best, kind of almost the best of both worlds, in that it has a solid flooring but it has wire in the middle, and I will show you that now. So these aren't fully set up yet, and I haven't fully got everything cleaned up yet, so please don't see that. But basically, these are my set wooden set of cages that I designed myself. I made it out of metal shelving and wiring, and basically the locks work like this. They're like little swivel locks, and you have this open and it opens like this. Okay, so yeah, so this is the benefit here is I've got these trays which I made from cat litter trays and cut to size, and so I pull this out and pull these drawers out if I need to, so they come out like this. It's always good to have drawers that you can pull out, a little bit of paper in there, because then it's easier to clean, you know, so you always want to have drawers that come out. I've got my nest box here and a perch over here, but so you've got nice solid flooring, and then you've got the wire, and as you can see there's wire here so the birds can see through into the other nest breeding cage. Okay, so that's that version. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, but like I say, I would prefer if this back wall was solid, because it's just easier to clean, because all the seed and feathers and poop and stuff goes back there, and it's really difficult to get back there without moving the whole unit out from the wall. Okay, so that's that as well. Going over here, this is a wire cage. Like I say, I don't like to use these wire cages very often. These are just spare cages, and I can go through why I have spare cages in another video. And then these are my breeder units, which I've had for a very long time, and as you can see, they're well chewed by the females, and a little mouse broke in during winter while I had these in storage, so he nibbled a little hole here. So I wasn't very impressed with that. So these are kind of so they do need a repaint. They are getting a bit old, but they're really, really good cages, and they got nice solid floors. Okay. So today I'm going to focus on these solid wood cages more, and my next thing that I'm going to talk about is how to set up the nest box. So there's also different ways that you can have nest boxes as well. You can have an out of cage nest box, or as you saw in my other cages over there, you can have an in cage nest box. The bonuses to having an outer cage nest box is you have a lot more room available to the birds to fly in, because you're not having the nest box take up a large amount of space. The outdoor boxes, they're easier access as well. You can get into them without disturbing the birds in here, which is nice. You're less likely to have birds flying out while you are like going in and having a look, and it's just a lot nicer. They also won't get poop on top of them as well, because the birds love to sit on top of the nest boxes, and it can be quite messy. So that's another real benefit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through, take you into the nest box, I guess, and we'll go through that. Okay, so here is the nest box. Now, a really, really important thing about nest boxes is that they must be dark on the indoors with minimal light. So I've got some ventilation holes in this one. And the reason is because the birds, they prefer darkness or parrots or budgies that nest in hollows, wood hollows in the wild. They like the darkness. Okay, so you will see some nest boxes advertised online that they have clear windows in them and are quite light and bright. They're not you. If you want any success, you just want a really dark, cozy little hole that they nest in. So the first thing you do before entering a nest box is you got to knock. The reason why you got to knock is it because this warns the hen that you're coming. Because if you open it suddenly and she's not expecting it, it gives her a huge fright. She could suddenly spook and scatter her eggs or damage eggs or chicks as she flies out, tries to get out. So always knock, and then eventually they learn that you're coming and something's happening. Okay, so knock before entering, and then I'll just slide that up and show you. So this is a box and box nest box. So I really prefer these because you can fully remove the box like this, and that allows you to get in there, check out the chicks, properly clean it out, check out the eggs, things like that, which is really, really nice. Your alternatives to a box in box is just a solid box, and I'll try and find one. Excuse this, I haven't cleaned these up yet. They're stuck. Okay, so your other option is just a solid. It's just got a solid concave in there. A bit dusty, sorry. So just a solid concave in there. You can pull this out, but it's stuck. There we go. So it's stuck in there. But yeah, so these are solid, and these are... I don't like these ones so much, but they're really the only ones that are available commercially in New Zealand. So if you want a box and box, you have to make them. And the reason I don't like them is they're much harder to clean and open, as you can see. I'm struggling. Also, I find the hens like to sit in here, and then if the door is loose, they push up on it. And then sometimes they fully like push it off like this. And then I come in and their door's off, and I'm like, you need the darkness, stop it. So getting back to this nest box setup, of course, there needs to be a little entrance hole, which you can see in there. And it needs to be about the size of the hen, just a little bit larger so it's not uncomfortable for her to get in. Now on this side, you'll see, if it focuses, that there's a little perch just outside the front. Now these are quite important because what that does is that allows the male to sit on the perch, and so he can feed his hen while she's sitting in there, because she'll come to the door. She'll come to the door, take this, and she'll, want to be fed, and he'll sit there and he'll sing to her and things like that, and feed her. So it's really good to have a little perch like that. If your nest box doesn't come off a perch, then just make sure to hang one. Make sure to hang one just in front, so it's nice and easy for them. This one, as you can see, is well chewed. Okay. Alright, so the next really important part is, if we look in here, you'll see there's like this concaved area. Concaves are really, really important because what they do is they prevent eggs from rolling around. I'll bring it out onto the ground so I can show you. So it prevents eggs from rolling around. So when the hen lays them, she lays the eggs, they kind of fall in this area here. You naturally want to position the concave at the end furthest away from the entrance hole, because that's where she's going to nest, in the darkest area. So so when they lay their eggs, the eggs will roll in and sit in the bottom and stay there, and that means that they're more likely to be evenly incubated. She's less likely to kick eggs out and you see them roll around here or whatever. So so that's why they're good. It also means when the babies are growing, they're less likely to get splay leg. Now, splay leg happens more commonly when babies are kept on flat surfaces, because if you can imagine, this is their feet. There's nothing to stop their little feet from spreading out. That and some other nutritional problems can cause splay leg as well. So when they're kept in here, their little feet don't really spread out. So if you don't have a concave in your nest box, then it's really important to make sure your bedding is really deep, so that naturally there's something for the little feet to push against. Okay, so I'll pop that back in here. So here's a really good example. This is a fake egg. And you'll see that it sits in there. It's just starting to rain now, so there we go. But yeah, it will just sit in there and keep it centralized, and she'll just sit on that. Okay, so bedding. I like to use kiln dried pine shavings. And when I'm first setting up the cage, I only put in a small handful, and the reason is because the hens, they will come in when they're first exploring their cage, their nest boxes. They'll come in and then they'll redecorate. They love to redecorate. And so what they do is they will come in and they'll move it around. They'll often kick out all the everything you've put in there. And I like pine shavings because they're nice and light and easy for the hen to pick up and throw out down here and such. And so it's a really cool way of also knowing that your bird's been exploring the nest box, because you'll see like wood shavings and stuff sitting on the bottom of the cage here, because you know that she's dropped it down there. So that's a really good way of knowing. Other people I've heard use oats as bedding. I think some people use peat moss. You can use natural cat litters like paper cat litter or tofu cat litter, but I don't like those so much at the
at the beginning stage at least anyway, because they're quite heavy and a bit difficult for the hen to pick up. So, yeah. So I don't tend to use those. They can be really useful later when you've got a large clutch, which do become quite messy and such. So basically, once the hen has laid her eggs, she will sit on them. And it's not really until the babies hatch and start pooping that you can then just start replacing your bedding. It's okay for her to have no bedding in the nest box while she's incubating the eggs. That's absolutely fine. But when her babies start to poop, you can just subtly add in little bits of shaving or bedding or something like that until it builds up enough. And that's the way to do it. She's less likely to pick it and kick it out at that stage because she's got lots of other things that she's focused on at that time. Yeah, so another thing that you can do is you can put mite powder, a little sprinkle of mite powder underneath the box here. And that just helps prevent mites from sort of setting up. So underneath the box or underneath the concave if you have don't have a box and box system. Okay, so getting to the cage now. All right, so you want a nice sort of large area for the birds to play in. Yes, my cage is very chewed. Yes, it needs to be repainted. You can see they've chewed the back. Chewing is a really good sign of hens getting ready. They will chew on wood. That's what they do. So that's a good sign. So expect your cages to get chewed. Okay? So that's why you want to make sure you use natural wood. So this is made out of pine, untreated pine, and just non-toxic paints because they will chew. They will absolutely chew. Okay, so what you want is you want a large enough cage. So the bigger you can get, the better. While this isn't huge, it's big enough that the male can go back and forward. There was I think it was like a kind of anecdotal study or just like not an actual study done, but kind of like a little experiment where when they made the birds exercise more, so they made them fly around more, then they had much better success with their clutches. So I can't remember the exact success, whether it was a larger clutch, healthier birds, or something like that. But um, certainly having a larger cage is better. So the largest you can get, the better. Of course, you don't want it too big because then they might not be able to find their nest box. But then, mind you, the hen she needs it, she will find it. Now, the perches are actually really, really important. And so what I'll show you here is that I've got at least 2 perches in this cage, and you'll notice that they face each other. This is because a large part of the male's courtship display is jumping from perch to perch. So he'll have the female sitting here, and then he'll jump to one perch and back again, kiss her, jump back and forth, and things like that. So it's really important to have 2 perches like this. It's also really important to make sure at least one of your perches is really sturdy, because when they go to mate, the hen has to be able to actually grip on properly as well, because when they're mating, you don't want her to fall off. So she's got to be able to have good grip. Okay? So some people will use square perches to increase grip. I have very chewed square perch, but it's very grippy, which is good because it's so chewed up. And I've also got natural perches. It's also really, really important to have perches of different sizes as well, so that they exercise their feet. This helps prevent a condition called bumblefoot, also known as pododermatitis, which is where they get pressure sores because they're always sitting in the same spot. So an ideal perch for just sitting, you don't want their claws to meet like this, but a good perch for mating is they're able to get a really good grip. So you kind of want one of each size. Okay, so feeders. So I've got these automatic feeders here that kind of separate the husks out from the seeds. So it makes it much easier when looking after and changing food and things like that. So if you can make your job easier, you need to do it. So this is why I've got these feeders. If I could, I would also have automatic drinkers. I just yet haven't been able to splurge out for that, but that is something that I want to do next for sure. because automatic drinkers and the water is more likely to stay clean. They're not, this is why I've got a peg on here, is so the hen won't, well, usually the hen, sometimes the boy gets bored too. They come in and they kind of jiggle the bowl and they pull it off, and I come in and they've got no water because they've thrown their bowl across the room. So it's also a really good thing. The hens always love to sit on these and poop in them as well. So if I can get automatic drinkers, I'm going to be so happy. So that would be my next big purchase. But yeah, so in the feeders here, you can see I've got a mix of seed and I've got some pellets as well. These are really cool. You just top them up from the top here. It's attached to the cage with a little hole, and they come in and they go in here and they eat their seed, and the husks fall down here. So it's really good and helpful. Some birds don't really like going in here, so you might find some birds will only go in here to get the seed. They may not eat the pellets from here, so to encourage them to eat their pellets, you can do a little bowl of pellets in here, because budgies like to be a bit naughty like that and not always eat their pellets. But yes, and when you want to empty your husks, you pull this out and you throw it in the bin. Okay. All right, so you need a seed bowl, you need a pellet bowl. Pellets and seeds are very important. So it's very important to have a balanced diet when feeding these guys. Seed does not contain all the nutrition that a budgie needs. It's very high in fat and very low in nutrition, especially vitamin A. Now, the brand of seed I buy is I buy Top Flight from New Zealand, Top Flight budgie seed. There's no fatty seeds like sunflowers or anything, and then there's no sorghum or anything. It's all canary seed, oats, and millet, I believe. This is grown in New Zealand, and as a result, most of the seeds in here are not heat treated. So the vitamin A, according to Top Flight, there's the vitamin A isn't as low. So I always try and recommend locally grown seed that hasn't been heat treated if at all possible. And then in here, I've got Rowdy Bush nibbles. The reason why I chose Rowdy Bush nibbles is because they are very similar in size to the seed. And a lot of my budgies, when converting to them, that's what they're more likely to try. They look similar to seed, but birds are very visual creatures, so it's really important to have something that they'll really enjoy. You will find some birds, when you feed them the coloured pellets, will only eat one colour. So I like the Rowdy Bush nibbles just because they're easy, they're nice and affordable, etc. Now, there's always a lot of controversy about pellets. The thing with birds is you need to provide them the most opportunities to obtain nutrition as possible. So by providing them pellets, they're getting the nutrients and things that they can't get from the seed. Because the thing is, there's no way for me as someone in New Zealand to provide a natural diet for a budgie here. Budgies come from the outback of Australia. They naturally eat Australian seeds and Australian grasses and plants. I do not have a way to provide them with Australian seeds. Millet is naturally from the North America. So that's where that's from. So people do need to remember that when they are feeding when they opt out of feeding pellets and things like that, that their seed isn't even natural as well. Okay, I'm just taking little rain breaks because it's pretty heavy. And then, of course, I have a water bowl, which I can take off and clean. And then on the inside, I will have a bowl of, this is a bowl of little shells. This is a calcium supplement. And then you can have a bowl for vegetables or things like that. I often just kind of chuck the vegetables in there. Because I do. Some birds prefer to forage on the ground. Remembering, of course, they're a grass parakeet. They like to forage on the ground. Calcium. Calcium is really important when it comes to breeding time. And this is because when hens lay their eggs, they use a large amount of calcium. Okay? Every time they produce an egg, it's somewhere about 25% of their calcium resources is used up in that egg. And if they do not have enough calcium in their bloodstream or their body, they take it from their bones. Okay? So it's really important that they have enough calcium during this time. Okay, so one way that we can give them calcium is, of course, these little shells. You can, of course, do cuttlefish bones as well. That's these little things here. Hang on. Yeah, You can, of course, do cuttlefish bones as well. These are also a really good source of calcium too. The hens often like to just destroy them, though, I find. But, you know, something for them to chew on, so that's another option. With calcium supplementation, before you start breeding, it's also really, really important to give them supplements. I like to say for 1 to 2 months at least before breeding, so the hens have got a really good chance to build up that calcium storage in their bones. So when they start getting hormonal, they do start to develop more sort of calcified bones, and they tend to store it in the femur, is one of the areas that they store calcium more. So I like to give them a really good resource because that's where they'll pull it from. And then when you do get to breeding them, I like to give them like a liquid supplement. So this is one version. This is Mineral Energy D3 liquid calcium. I use this one. It's quite affordable. Other option is Better Farm CalciVet. There's probably another option in your part of the world. Now what you'll notice here is that it's not just liquid calcium, it's D3 as well. So vitamin D3. It also has vitamin A and E as bonuses. Which is good if you have hens that will not eat their pellets, because some birds won't. And that can be a problem because sometimes I've had hens, you can provide them all the food and everything, but they will not eat their pellets, and they will only eat feed, and therefore they only feed those to the babies. And that can be a really huge problem because you can then get babies with hyperparathyroidism or metabolic bone disease, basically, and then they get weak bones and they can get multiple fractures and things like that. So that can happen. You just got to really make sure that your hens are eating everything, or that the male is at least eating everything and feeding her that. But getting back to that, so we've got vitamin D3 and calcium. Now, vitamin D is really, really important for helping to convert calcium into something that is usable. So they need vitamin D3 if they are not exposed to the sun. So the sunlight, unfiltered sunlight, helps to produce vitamin D in their body. So if they're having no exposure to the sun, then you need to supplement this. So we're indoors here, so these birds will be getting vitamin D3. If your breeding birds do have exposure to the sun, then they do not need vitamin D. You can just do a calcium only supplement, and that's absolutely fine. Okay, so the instructions on this, if you get a calcium supplement, follow the instructions on the bottle. Basically this is used 3 times a week during breeding, so I put this in the water every second day during breeding. I'll have a normal water bottle, and then I will have a calcium bottle. Now, it's very important that when you are supplementing water, you only do it when there are no chicks in the nest box. Then the reason this is because the hen, she takes in a large amount of water when she's feeding chicks. And so she can actually develop toxicities to any supplements or things in the water. So as soon as chicks hatch, you need to just give her plain water and only plain water. So that's where it gets really hard if they're not eating the appropriate foods. You just got to keep supplementing them with solid foods like pellets, the little shells, lots of really good veggies and things like that. So vitamin D3 and liquid calcium, really, really important when you are breeding birds. Okay. Okay. So why is calcium supplementation so important? So, of course, as we discussed before, they need calcium to build the egg cell. If they do not have enough calcium, they will produce soft-shelled eggs, or abnormal shelled eggs. These eggs, one, will not hatch. They will not grow because the shell is not intact. Therefore, the embryo is unable to form properly, take the oxygen through, is more likely to get infected and things like that. So if you're producing a soft shell, if you've got a hen that's producing soft shell eggs, you will not get babies anyway. So the other risk with soft shelled eggs is that they're hard for the hen to push out. So that makes it harder to push out. And then, of course, hens do need calcium for their muscles to contract. So if they do not have the calcium,
then they will not be able to actually push the eggs out. So what this can mean is they can become egg bound. And so when they're egg bound, this is an emergency. Egg binding makes it harder for them to breathe, makes it harder for them to defecate, and they can die from this. So if you have a bird that's egg bound, then it is an emergency and you should take your bird to the vet. So I can look at ways to handle birds in emergencies in other videos if you like, but today we're just focusing on setting up the breeding cage. So calcium, very, very important during the breeding season with birds. Okay? Yeah, so if you have a bird that does produce soft shell eggs, then it's really important to retire that hen and put her in your retirement cage for that season. If she's a young bird, she might be able to produce eggs next year, like if this is her first season. But it will be important to put her into a treat cage where you absolutely up her calcium. You can put her back onto the calcium supplementation in the water in that case. Okay, so the next thing is the cage bottom and what to put on the bedding on the cage bottom. So as you can see, I've got newspaper here. I really like newspaper because it's easy to change and you can keep an eye on their droppings. A really, really cool thing about hens is that when they go and sit in the nest box, they do not poop in the nest box. They will actually hold on to the droppings because they want to keep it clean. So they will come out and they'll find their little poop spot and then they'll do really, really large droppings. So a good way to know that your hen is also preparing to lay eggs or preparing to nest is you start seeing much larger droppings. So that's a really cool sort of early kind of warning thing, let us know, lets you know that she's in the process. When they do these large droppings, you will need to clean it out much more frequently. So it's really good. You could put in that area like a nice absorbent bedding because she will always poop in the same area. You could put a really nice absorbent bedding under that so that the poops absorb. But they are really wet and yucky, so it's really important to change that frequently. And if your birds are used to you, this isn't going to disturb them at all. Okay. On the first day that you're moving them in as well, you will probably notice a thing called stress polyuria. They get increased urine production because they are stressed. So it's just like us when we're stressed, we can get a little nervous bladder. We want to go pee. We want to go to the toilet. And that's the same for birds as well. When they're stressed, they will often create more urine, which is the wetness that you see around the dropping. So that's called stress polyuria. Often probably lasts for only a day or so. If it's lasting for longer or it's excessively wet, then that could signify some other kind of illness as well, though, so you need to get them checked out for that. Okay, going back to the cage, I like to have in every cage, I like to have a toy or something like that. So I've got a little spinny toy in every cage, and that's because the boys, when they're out here, they get really bored, and I like them to have something to do or play with, because enrichment is really important. It's really, really important for their quality of life and happiness and things like that. So some breeders will argue, you give them a toy, they'll pay attention to the toy and not to the hen. I haven't found that in my experience. I find that they prefer to, they just play with the toy, and then when the hen needs them, they go and help her out. So, yeah, I like to do that for them as well. Okay, so yeah, this is pretty much how I have my cages set up. I like to have my nest box with a little handful of shavings in there, with a concave this side, a little perch for the doorway there, at least 2 perches of varying sizes facing each other for the male to jump back and forward, newspaper on the bottom for easy cleaning and monitoring of droppings, a calcium supplement of some kind, a feeder with both seeds and pellets of good quality seed, good quality pellet, a drinker, which is really important, and then of course you'll have vegetables and things like that in there too. So those are kind of your main, in a toy, and those are your kind of main ways to set up. So let me know if this was helpful to you, and if you have any kind of questions, I'll try and answer them my best, or if you want me to make a video about certain things. I plan to make a video about how to set up a breeding room and what you may require as well. So I want to go into that a little bit more deeply. I also want to go into like how to select your birds, to make sure they're healthy, and what you need to do for them before they go in, like parasite control and things like that. I could also make a more in-depth video about nutrition. There's so many things that I can go over, and I'm really, really happy to do that. Bear in mind, I do work full time. I logged into my YouTube account recently because I posted some of my artwork, and I saw comments from people who said that they really missed my videos, and so I thought, okay, I will try and make some more videos. But yeah, bear in mind, I do work full time as a veterinarian, and so it can be quite tiring. So I'll try my best. Luckily I'm on annual leave at the moment, so I'm just enjoying my summer Christmas holidays. So yeah, but I'm really happy to try and do that. I really want to help educate people about birds, and I'm really happy to answer some questions. So yeah, so I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope it's really, really helpful to you, and yeah, leave some comments down below, and I'll try my best. Anyway, happy holidays, and I hope you have it's December 31st here today, so hopefully you have a great New Year's, and we'll probably see you in the New Year. Okay, bye.